Guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Susie here on YouTube. I love to go thrift store shopping and save items, if you will, and make them over. I bring them back here. I show you guys how I make them over, and then I sell them here at my vintage store and online. Once a year, to celebrate the anniversary of my YouTube channel, I love to do a compilation video of all of my favorite thrift store makeovers. Usually I do that back in September, but as many of you know, I was in the middle of opening this store in September. So this year I'm doing it to celebrate another milestone. I just turned 50 2 days ago, so I'm doing my compilation video to celebrate my 50th birthday. Keep in mind the voiceovers for these were filmed at the time I recorded them, so just check the website for availabilities, and or if I say something about an event, don't take that into consideration. Thank you guys so much for coming along on this journey with me. I hope that you enjoy my favorite thrift flips. Now let's get to them. Easy things, and now we're going to do a little detail. So I've had this little clock in my stash for quite a while, and you know, the first of the year we're all trying to clean out our stashes, so I thought I'm going to go ahead and make this over. I did not really like the idea of this being a clock, and I always had the vision of making a little bird nest out of it. So that's what I'm going to do. I just removed the clock pieces, and I'll save them. I might have something I can turn into a clock later on because it does work. So I am going to paint this with, I started out with Chateau, but it was the bottom of the barrel. So I'm going to switch colors later. That is a fusion paint, and I do carry the fusion paints on my website, susieonthefarm.com, if you're interested in the all-in-one paint. So I'm going to take the Laurel mold here, and I really wanted to give a lot of extra detail on this clock slash birdhouse. First of all, I dusted the laurel wreath there that I was going to use with some cornstarch, and now I'm going to use some air dry clay. I'm just going to work it into the mold, and these IOD molds are very easy to use. They have this little micro rim, so you just rub your finger across it and it cleans up the edges perfectly. So I just like to rub and clean up the edges until I get my mold flat on the side, and then use gravity to pull it out. And I'm going to go ahead and do both sides of this little laurel wreath. I'm also going to do just the little oval inside frame there from this frames mold the same way, and I'm going to use it inside of the bird nest. If you need any of the IOD products that I'm using in today's video or any of my videos, those are also available on my website. I try to ship within 1 to 2 days, so you'll get them pretty quickly. And I am just going to now use a combination of tight bond glue with a little dot or two of hot glue to hold it in place immediately to glue these molds down. I'm going to put the frame in the inside center, and then we're going to end up putting a bird on that frame as well. And then for the laurels, I'm going to put them on the outside. I did have to cut the laurels down just a tad to make them fit just right, but it looks like they were made to go on this project. Then once I have all my molds glued down, while they are still wet, I'm going to go ahead and do a second coat of paint. With the fusion paint, it has a built-in sealer, so it's like that first coat of paint blocks any bleed through. So bleed through is very rare when you are using the fusion all-in-one paints. And I do like to paint my molds when they are slightly wet, and that just reduces the amount of cracking that can happen during the drying process. It slows down the drying process just enough where they don't crack. So, like I said, I used the very last of the Chateau. So now I have switched over to cobblestone. This is the first time I am using the cobblestone. And In the bottle, it looks to be super similar to Chateau, but it does have more of a gray undertone. And at first, I did not like the gray undertone, but once I got the whole thing painted, I did like it, but I did want to deepen it up. So after I distressed the entire box really good, I'm going to come back again with the Fusion Aging Wax, and I'm going to heavily go over those molds, being sure to take my little soft bristle brush and getting it down into all those details. And then I'm going to take a dry paper towel and just wipe the top layer back, and you see how it stays in there and it looks like it's just aged and older, and gives it that really rich character look that I was going for. So I went ahead and waxed the entire piece. I'm doing it in sections at a time, making sure to get that wax down into all those details, and then wiping back the high areas. So this is just a resin mold from the birdsong mold I already had made up. I'm going to use the Fusion French eggshell and just give this little bird a couple coats of the paint, and then to make him blend in with the old of our project, I'm going to take some of the, after it's dry, I'm going to use some of the aging wax just to bring out all those details on this beautiful little bird, and we're going to hot glue him directly onto the frame in the center of the clock. And then finally, to complete the project, I made a little bird nest out of some Spanish moss, and also used some floral to put in the drawer, but that's just an extra step. You don't have to. And look how gorgeous this little birdhouse nest clock project came out. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Be sure to and I am going to do a tried and true. I've used this stamp set many times on rolling pins, and it is definitely one of my favorite and sells really well. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the inside of this rolling pin with Victorian lace, just a bright white, and I'm going to use the birds and bees stamp. I love how this stamp set is even arranged on the backing, so unless I'm just doing one individual one, I just leave them right on there. And this one always turns out pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and paint the handles with Carriage House, just a, you know, like a darker green color. And once this one is dried, it is all ready. Now, I do have a question. I did not paint the ends on this one. I've noticed that most people, when they upcycle rolling pins, they do not paint the ends. And I think I'm going to go back and paint it, just because I usually do. It can get a little tricky painting the ends of it and not getting any on the handles if the handles are pretty close to it, but usually I can get it worked out. I just think it looks kind of unfinished, or maybe I'll just go back and be sure to sand that where you really can't see the line, just make it more distressed at the end. What do you guys think about this stamp set on the rolling pin? Be sure you leave a comment below, even any kind of comment. Like, helps YouTube share out my video, and I appreciate that very much. So for the third rolling pin, this one's really big, and the whole time I had a vision for this one to be kind of like English toile, and I definitely wanted to use a different color ink. So I'm going to use the Rule Scene stamp. Again, I'm just going to leave it on the backing. I do like the way it's arranged on here, and I know that my rolling pin's not going to get it all, so I'm only going to ink up the center part that I know is actually going to fit on the rolling pin. And I'm using the China blue ink. You can't see it going on, but I love this blue color. It's very vibrant, and I just think that it just makes this rolling pin. And I do love this stamp too. It turned out really great. I'm going to paint the handles in a blue color. This is a new to me fusion color called Liberty Blue, but I thought that it was the most fitting to go with these handles. Need to do some cookies in that. And we also have this gorgeous invitation only. And I'm going to do a project with it. And I've saved my very favorite for last. This has all the bust of the cat, the stag, the wolf, and the dog. These are kind of like the stamps in the antiquity stamp. I'm going to use some 10-minute resin on this. Super easy to use this stuff. You just do half part A, half part B, mix it really well, and pour it in. And 10 minutes later, you have your mold set up and ready to come out. The IOD molds have the exact measurement of resin that you will need. I knew I was going to need this whole thing plus more, so I just poured it all up. You want to pour really slow. Try not to over pour like I just did there. But if you do over pour, it's no big deal. I'll show you how to clean that up here in just a minute. It's super simple. So I'm going to get all these made up, and then about 10 minutes later, we're going to come back and take them out of this mold. Okay, so now our molds are ready, and it's quite satisfying removing these resin after they have cured. And y'all, look at the detail in these molds. I am going to give the stag just another minute there, because when it's not a real thick in the resin, like up in those antlers, it takes it just a little bit longer to cure. So here's the one that I over poured. Sometimes you can just pull right off depending on how thick your resin was there at the crease. Sometimes you will have to cut it off, but that is really super easy. Go ahead and give each of these 2 coats of this bronze metallic. This is a fusion metallic, and it's one of my favorites. I love doing this metallic with dark wax over it. I am going to do that with all 4 of these molds, and I took those frames that I had got at an estate sale outside, and I sprayed them with a matte black spray paint, and we're going to put each of these molds in those frames. Look at this. I am obsessed with the detail on these molds. I am going to take some, I'm going to dry brush some of that bronze, just hitting the high spots on these frames, just to give the outsides a little bit of detail so you can really bring all that detail out. The stag was a little too tall for the frame that has 3 in it, so he's getting his very own little frame. I'll sell these separate or together. Either way, they are so amazing. I can imagine this in a dark Adamia type library or something. Very masculine, but also so cool. I'm just going to hot glue these on. If someone ever decides to remove them and do something else with them, they'll be easy to remove just by heating up the hot glue. The fox, or is that a wolf? The wolf was a little bit too tall, so I kind of had to also glue his hat to the top, and he kind of leans out just a little bit. But y'all, I am obsessed with these molds. What do you guys think about this project? I hope that y'all have enjoyed this video and the projects that I have started with the new IOD release. Like I said, I'm going to be using these a lot in upcoming videos if you need any ideas. Also, don't forget over on Facebook to join my inspiration group. So excited to finally get this going, and I want to see what you guys are creating. That is the whole point. You can share your projects. You can share your YouTube link out if you have one. I want to empower women. That is what I'm here for. This is my side hustle, and I don't know what I would do without it and without you guys. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. I will link my IOD store down below. For our next project, I've had this sign in the booth for 2 years, and while I love it, I love the sayings on it, I think these signs with all the wording on them are just gone now. So instead of just getting rid of it, I am going to change it. I am going to paint over the words here with 2 coats of my favorite off-white. It actually matches the canvas already underneath it. Was not hard to cover it. This is Fusion in the color Chateau. And then I am going to use one of the Roycycled craft stencils. I have some of these ordered and should be here soon on my website. But they're a little bit pricey, but y'all, they are so easy and absolutely foolproof. You can hardly mess these up. I did not pay any attention to what I was doing. I just held it in place, and I used a very dry brush, and this is the cast iron fusion mineral paint, and I love it. I think this is amazing how these stencils work out. It didn't go under them or anything. So originally I wanted to use the pumpkins from the Roycycled stacked heirloom pumpkins, but they were too large, so I had to go to the regular heirloom pumpkin sheet, and it has these that are stackable. They're not already stacked, but that's no problem. They fit perfectly on my project here. So I just cut each of my individual pumpkins out, and I did not want the black to show through on this bottom one that I painted on the bushel basket there. So I went over the back of the decoupage paper with some white paint, and then I painted a little over the basket back with the Chateau as well. And then I'm going to cut all my pumpkins out, cut the white out from around all the pumpkins, and just cut directly up to the pumpkins for all 3 of them, and then we're going to decoupage them right into this basket. I have found that if you spritz your decoupage paper with some water just before you put it down, it will have less wrinkles. I practically have no wrinkles when doing it this way. And then I just start a little starter piece with some of the Fusion decoupage and transfer gel. And then I just do it a little bit by little bit, smoothing it out with my brush after I put it down. And then I'll just continue doing that with the 2 top layers. And I also cut a few of the florals out from this decoupage paper and stuck in between them. But we're not going to be done there. We have another step after this. Y'all don't forget that I have these decoupage papers available on my website, susieonthefarm.com. And I also have all of the IOD products as well as the Fusion paint and the Stallmaster brushes, all kinds of craft supplies that you need to recreate these items yourself. With the decoupage papers, I get them like kind of in rolls, or they're folded in half, but like I just get all of these decoupage papers folded in half together, and then when they come in I have to fold them and package them for either going to the store or selling online. I have chose to do them in 8x10 packaging. I find they're just easier to ship that way. Also, I do want to say that before that, I would order decoupage papers, and most of the time that's how they came. I never thought anything of the crease being in them, and I don't have any problems with the creases. Whenever you decoupage them onto something, it smooths that crease right out. If that's something that you're worried about, though, you can lay a towel down over it and iron it flat if you want to before you start. So moving on to this project, I'm going to put the word pumpkins on. I'm using the farm hand stamp. This is the thin letters, kind of Ray Dunn type, and I think that they were perfect for this project because they fit right on there and looked like they just really went with this whole design. So I've just put them on a thin mount. The thin mounts have the lines where you can make sure everything is straight. And if you get a little ink on there like I did, you can take a baby wipe it right off, because you don't want to press down and get that ink on your project. So it only comes with one of each letter, so I left a space there to go back and put the P in again for this word. I also placed a book underneath my project so I could press down hard on that canvas, and that worked out really well. The last piece of this project, I wanted to go real multimedia, and I decided to do a mold. I'm going to use the 10-minute resin here. Super easy. It's half part A, half part B. Mix it for a minute and then pour it up, and 10 minutes later you have this hard resin mold. So I thought it would be kind of fun. I did a 10-minute time-lapse video here so you could actually see it turning. This dries white, so you can tell when it's finished. And this one, you can't waste any time. Once you get it mixed up, get it poured, or it'll start setting up right there. So I just did the little pumpkin, and I did all the leaves. We're going to give them a fun paint job, and then we're going to finish our project. I decided to paint this little pumpkin with the Champness color paint. I'm also going to put some wax over it, so I knew that it would tone down the baby bluish and make it kind of look like an heirloom pumpkin. So I gave it a couple of coats of Champness. Then I am going to come back over all the leaves and paint them up some pretty fall colors. To start with, I'm going to go over all the leaves with Dixie Belle in the color Rusty Nail. This is a great fall color, and I needed to use it. And after those dry, I'm going to come back with some yellow don't remember which yellow, and it's out of screen, so I can't say, but it's just a yellow acrylic paint, I think. And I'm just going to lightly dry brush over the leaves to hit all the veins and stuff. And then finally, I'm going to come back with some gold, antique gold rub and buff, and just hit the tops of them again just to make them have a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of gold. And then finally, to finish this up, we're going to use some of the Fusion Aging Wax and just go over all the leaves and the pumpkin, and then wipe it back. I'm using Titebond glue to glue these to our project. My tube is about empty and stopped up there, so I'm just getting it out as I can and using a paintbrush to make sure that all the spots of the resin mold are covered. Then I'm just going to randomly glue them on in different spots. See how I have the leaves set? And then this project will be done. I think it turned out so amazing. And I made this for my sweet mother-in-law for her birthday. And I hope that she enjoys it. What do you guys think about our multimedia project? Lump them all in together. I have this dove that has been listed on the website since I started the website. I thought he was beautiful. He was hand painted, but he was a little too shiny, I guess, as well as this girl head planner. So I took both of these down off the website, and I'm going to upcycle them, put them in the booth, and see if they sell. So we are going back to Chateau here. It's almost the exact same color as the dove, but I want to make it where he has some more texture and not as shiny. This is the Fusion Fresco Textured Powder, and it's an aging powder. It just gives your project a lot more depth and really makes it look good. So I mix it up. You're supposed to do like half and half. I think I put a little bit more powder in this one, and then I'm just going to stipple it on to the dove. He's really shiny, so you can't really tell, but the stippling is going to help with that a lot, as well as the powder. So I'm just going to go ahead and give him a couple of coats. See, the color is almost a perfect match for what he is already. And for the girl head and this other rooster that I had in my stash, I'm going to do the faux cement. And for that, I like to use Waverly chalk paint in the color Mineral. So I'm just going to mix up some Mineral, and I thought I might like it just a tad bit darker. So I'm going to put a little drop of Hazelwood in there as well, and a scoop or two of the Fresco powder. Then I'm going to mix it up really good and go ahead and stipple these two. I'm going to use a chip brush to go over the girl and the rooster, and I think I did about a coat and a half on these. It is real easy with this powder to get good coverage on even these shiny items. Some people recommend giving them a good spray, and you can with a sealer or something, but I didn't have any problem with the paint sticking to this girl, even though she was super shiny, and so was the dove that I did earlier with this powder in it. So I've noticed something, y'all. When I do get a chance, I like to watch some of the other creators just to see what they're doing and their different techniques. And I always notice how neat their painting stations are. Like, I don't know how they keep it so crisp and neat. I make a mess, and look at my fingers. That's another thing. Their fingernails are always so pretty, and you don't see a ton of paint on their hands, but mine are always covered. So I got all these painted with 2 coats. I even found another rooster that I painted with the Chateau mixture that I had left over. You don't want to save that once you put the fresco powder in it. So I went ahead and used up what I had mixed up. And the next step, I'm going to come in with some clear wax on all 4 of them. These don't have to be sealed because it's fusion paint, but I do want to come in with a dark wax or a light wax over the top of these, and I want to have a lot of control over this. I'm using some DIY clear wax. I had just a tiny bit left, and then I moved on to the fusion clear wax, and this wax is a scented wax. This one's called Field of Tuscany. I don't have any scented waxes on my website yet, but I'll probably put them in with the next order because this smells so good. So I got everything clear waxed and white back. Let that dry just a few more minutes, and then we're going to come back for the last step on these 4 items. So for the gray ones, I want to make them look like a faux cement, and the best way to do that is white wax over gray. And these turned out so good. That white wax sits down in all those crevices and details, and then you white back, and it just looks so good over this gray. Look at that rooster. He's already looking so good. So I did the same thing with the rooster and the girl. Gave them a coat of white wax. Y'all don't worry about what's in that planner. It's just where there was some hot glue and some floral foam still stuck in it. So the other 2, we're going to do the same thing, except for we're going to use the aging wax. And I love the way this goes over the Chateau color. This rooster looks so good when he is finished. And the dove, the same exact way. I love how every one of these turned out. And I love that I'm getting back to just making things look better. Having a YouTube channel, I get kind of worked up. I think I have to do something different that I've never done on a video, and it's hard to do. And the main thing is I want to get these items done. I want to get them where I can sell them, because that is how I can afford to do this. So I'm so happy that I'm getting through my stash. I'm getting some of these items fixed up because I have really got to get into the Christmas. I'm way behind. I know everybody else has already started it, but with the boat and everything, I have just not felt like the Christmas spirit. But we went on our last boat trip, and we'll probably be away from there for a little while. So I've got to get in Christmas mode. I'm getting kind of excited about it finally, so that's a good sign. Hopefully I can come up with some good ideas. So we are finished up with these, and all 4 of them turned out so good, so much better than they were. I may list these back online, or I may put them in the booth. If you're interested in one of these, let me know, and I'll definitely list it online for you. And I think these look so good. What do you guys think about this faux cement look? cases or whatever they are. This one I only paid $3 for, and it is in perfect condition, very clean. So we're going to give this a makeover on the outside, so hopefully someone will be proud to carry it. So the first thing I am going to do is give this 2 coats of, guess what color, green, Carriage House by Fusion. And I'm going to use a pointed sash brush, and I'm not going to paint the little feet there. They're in good shape and they're pretty silver, so I'll just leave them without any paint. And I'm going to get this painted up with 2 coats, almost covered really good in one. This leather, or yeah, I think this is actually leather, paints so well with the Fusion paint. If you get a leather chair or something, you would have absolutely no problems if you didn't like the color to give it a paint job. That would work really well. So 2 coats on this, let that dry, and then we are going to come back with some transfers. I've tried not to just paint something and put a transfer on it in the last many videos, but honestly, y'all, that stuff sells, and that's why I do it. I love the IOD transfers, and I love using them on my projects. Not every project needs a transfer, but I have so many, and I have ones that, like for instance, the 2 floral that I'm going to use in this project are from my very first Brocante transfer pack from before I even started being a stockist, which was well over a year ago. I had ordered this, and I'm still using that same pack. So I got these 2 florals out, and I thought that they would look so good on this box. So right now I'm just positioning it, trying to figure out how I want to put it on there and go around the handle. So I cut some of the excess off, and I'm just going to do the bottom half first. It's real easy to put a transfer on. If you're new to that, every transfer comes with this little tool, and you just rub until it transfers onto your project. When you're going around these round areas like this, just be really careful and make sure that you are rubbing before you lift up. If you happen to lift up and your project has not went onto your surface, just lay it back down and rub it some more. So I'm putting this beautiful rose on the top of this one, and then there was also some nice script that I'm going to put on the top. And then for the bottom, I'm going to use part of those other roses, and I'm kind of wrapping around the edges and the top and just making this kind of evened out just a little bit. We're also going to do a little wording on the bottom of this one, and I thought about going back and distressing. However, I decided not to distress this piece. From here, I am going to seal the transfers. Sometimes people are always commenting that I don't seal my transfers, but just because I don't show it in every project does not mean that I do not seal it before I sell the items. The paint does have a sealer in it, but you do want to go over your transfers. That just makes them a permanent piece of your project. And y'all, look how gorgeous this train case is. I know this thing is going to sell really well. I'm going to get it priced up and in the booth, and this would probably make a really great Christmas present for someone. So thank y'all so much for watching this week's video. I hope that you have enjoyed these transformations. Next week we're going to get into some Christmas projects, and I can't wait to see you guys there. Be sure you leave a comment below and like this video. These Bun Pans. I probably have 6 or 8 of these Bun Pans in my stash. I usually pick them up if they're under $2. Looks like this one was $1.99. This one does not have a price tag, and this one was $2.99. So I've been trying to think of something to do with these to get some of them out of my stash, and so today I'm going to work on them. I'm going to go ahead and paint them all. I'm not trying to veer too much from the original colors, so I'm going to paint this one with a yellow. I am using Fusion paint, which has a built-in sealer and great coverage. For this green one, I'm going to use my favorite year-round, I feel like this is a year-round green, called Carriage House I just love the gray tone of it, and it goes great with summer and will also go right into fall and maybe even Christmas. And what I'm going to do with these bundt pans can be changed out through the season. For this beige one, I'm going to paint it Chateau. All of these are Fusion, which has a built-in top coat, and I do not need to seal these once the 2 coats are done. I do like to distress on things like this because I just love the look of metal coming through. So I don't necessarily want to bring out that original yellow color, but I do want to get down to that metal because I just really love the way that that looks on all of these details. So I'm going to go ahead and distress them all using a little bit of 220 grit sandpaper, and then once I get them all distressed, we're going to move on to the next step. Years ago, I had also picked up these, like a case of these cathedral windows, I guess. And I've sold a few of them here and there with a wreath hanging on it, but I thought that these bundt pans would go perfect. And I could also make use of some of these. So I'm going to put a little hook on the bottom, and I did get a little bit out of the frame here, but you get the idea. I'm drilling this little hook into the back so there will be something you can hang something on. I didn't have any black screws, so I'm just filling in the silver screws with a paint pen here. And then we're going to go back to the bundt pans. I am going to hot glue just a small piece of floral foam into the center of each bundt pan, and then I have just picked a bunch of thrifted or Walmart florals. I've got florals everywhere, and I picked a bunch that were mostly green and yellow, so they can be left in there and other florals added for the seasons, or they can all be removed. I am going to put some dogwoods in these for summer, but I think that I can just remove the dogwoods and probably put some floral foliage and maybe some little pumpkin picks in these for fall if they don't sell before then. When I'm doing floral arrangements, I find if I cut my florals down into pieces, it's much easier to arrange them how I like them and make them look more uniform. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm filling in each as I go, so I try to get a good mixture of all the flowers into each one, and then when I finish up, I'm just going to stuff some Spanish moss in around it just to make sure that you can't see the floral foam in there anymore. And these bundt pans are done. I drilled a little hole in them and then hooked them onto the little cathedral windows, and you can hang a dish towel. If you see, I have a rolling pin on one. They look amazing together. All the colors coordinate so well together. Or you could just have one and it would be so cute hanging in your kitchen. These might be my last two, and I love doing planters out of these. So we're going to be using air dry clay. On the first one, we're going to use the sunflower mold. Y'all, this one is out of stock. I don't have any, and it's out of stock with IOD. They are supposed to come in September, but any mold will work. I am just going to put the small sunflower on this one, and when you're using the IOD molds, you want to dust them with just a little bit of cornstarch to make it easier to remove the clay. There is no sticking when you use the cornstarch. After I remove it, I do take my finger and just get off any excess stuff that isn't supposed to be there. But the detail in these IOD molds is amazing. I just love molds. You can use them over and over again. I use resin or clay in them, and there's just no end to the projects that you could do with these molds. So once I get all the molds made, I am going to glue them onto the pot using Titebond Quick and Thick. This is my favorite glue for gluing on molds, and I glue them on when they are wet because this is a curved surface and you want the clay to take the shape of the pot or whatever you are putting it on. So I'm going to glue them all on, and then I'm going to hold them on with tape. Painter's tape. I'm going to let them dry overnight. I do like to paint my molds when they're wet. That tends to lessen any cracking or shrinking that you might have because it makes the clay dry so much slower. But I didn't have time to get these painted, so I let them sit overnight before I painted them. And the second project, we're going to use the O Pumpkin mold. And I do have several of those available on my website. Somehow I ended up with several after the season, but this is a limited retired release. So once these are gone, I will not be able to get any more if you didn't get any of the pumpkin molds last year. So I wanted that stem to kind of look like it was sitting under the sunflower. So I decided where I was going to put it, and then I just cut it off and glued it where it looked like it was sitting under the sunflower. I wanted to show y'all this, but I am going to speed it up big time because you just saw me make a bunch of molds. But molds are really easy to make. Same thing, dust it with cornstarch. It has that micro rim where you just kind of rub your finger along the outside edge and clean it all up. So I'm just doing the smaller pumpkins on this, just 2 small pumpkins. I'm gonna like put them on top of each other, and then I'm gonna do just a few leaves, like some leaves are falling through the air. Leaves have already started falling at my house. We've had kind of a drought, so it's been really dry, so the leaves are already turning and it looks so pretty. The next morning, I'm going to paint inside and out of these. For the one with the sunflower, I chose Oakum. It's a brown, I think it has kind of a green tint to it, but and a little bit of black, but I absolutely love this dark color. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the inside and the outside. And for the sunflower, I wanted to use white wax, but then I decided that I had a different plan. So I am going to dry brush this copper metallic paint on here. And as you can see, I am offloading almost every little bit of it. I just want to highlight that mold just a little bit without having to use wax to do it, because I didn't want to go with a lighter color. I wanted to keep this really dark. And then I am going to go over the entire thing with some of the Fusion Aging Wax. I'm going to do the inside too, just because this gives it an extra layer of durability for in case somebody puts a live plant inside one of these. I've done it several times. I have several pots that I've done just like this that I have live plants in, and they do just fine. And somehow I did not get on camera painting the other one, but I did paint that entire thing with the copper metallic paint. And then I went over the top of it with the same Fusion Aging Wax, and they both turned out so beautiful. I love both of these pots, and you got kind of two projects in one here. Like I said, I have some of these pumpkin molds left if you need some, or any of the decoupage paper, fusion paint. Most of the things that I use in my projects you can get on my website, SusieOnTheFarm.com. I hope that y'all have enjoyed today's moody fall Halloween-ish projects. Let me know which one was your favorite below in the comments. I'll be back Friday with another video, and I hope to see you guys then. Have a great night.
So let's go ahead and get started with project number 1. This one's really not a thrift store makeover, but it's something that you can get for very inexpensive drop cloth. I like to get my drop cloth at Harbor Freight. I just love the color of it, and I pre-wash and dry it. So we're going to be using the farm animal stamp today. These are IOD, and you can get these on my website, SusieOnTheFarm.com. It's got these 5 or 6 really amazing farm animals. So I am just going to stamp this chicken with some IOD black ink. I'm using a brayer because I really want to get the ink down into the fabric. If you're stamping on a solid surface, it goes on really bright, but sometimes on this drop cloth you have to press a little bit harder. So once I get the stamp on, I am going to cut the chicken out, and I'm going to cut a little bit further out from the stamp just to have a little bit of excess around him. And then I'm also going to cut a back out of the drop cloth for him. I do learn an easier way to do that here in a minute by cutting them both at the same time. But once I get them both cut out evenly, then we're going to make some ornaments out of all these farm animals. So I'm going to speed through the rest of the animals here. We've got a pig, and I'm just using scrap pieces of drop cloth. When I get a new one, I usually just put it on my table, fold it, and then I refold it different ways to try to get not a big blob of paint where you guys are viewing. So these are just kind of the ends that hang off my table and just scrap pieces of drop cloth. So we have a pig and a cow and a sheep, a rabbit and a chicken. And these are a pretty good size stamp. You can tell by my hand there that they're probably about the size of my hand. So like I said, I did find an easier way to cut them out by folding and cutting both pieces at the same time. That just ensures that they are cut the same and cuts down on some time as well. So I'm not using a thin mount here, but I did leave the plastic backing and just cut each animal out. If you do get some of the ink onto the plastic backing, I like to just take a baby wipe to wipe that off before I stamp, because sometimes you will get the imprint of that as well. So now we have all our animals stamped and cut out. And for the ornament hangers, I'm just going to use some of this off-white ribbon that I have. And then for some of them, I'll use the trim pieces of the drop cloth, and I thought that looked really neat too. So we're going to just hot glue the strings onto the back side of our ornament, and then we're just going to go around the edge and hot glue the pieces of drop cloth together and leave an opening so we can stuff that here at the end. And for stuffing, I decided to just use something everybody has laying around the house, and I'm going to just use plastic bags. I used about 1 plastic bag per ornament, and I did just cut them down to make it easier to stuff into them. And you'll see here in a minute, I'll use the pencil to push the plastic down into the ornament. It doesn't have to be super thick, but I did want to get it evened out. Like I said, I think I ended up using an entire plastic grocery bag for each ornament, maybe a little bit less. The cow, I think, held more than most. Finally, once I got him stuffed, I used just a little bit more hot glue to close up that last little spot. And I decided to put a bow on him around his neck. So I just hot glued that on. And then the last step, I'm going to take my little finger sander and just rough up all the edges of the drop cloth. Not, so it doesn't look like I just cut it, and then I'll cut off any of the excess hangings. And I'll finish that up with all 5 of these ornaments. And y'all, these are so stinking cute and farmhouse looking. They are a great addition to if you have a farmhouse tree. And I just love the way that they turned out. What do you guys think about these easy drop cloth farm animal ornaments? Leave a comment below. When you comment on my videos, it helps YouTube to share it out, and I appreciate that so much. You're helping my channel grow just by doing something easy and free. This teapot that I had found, it is old. It's Mikasa, and it is made in Japan, but it was just in too bad of shape to be able to sell as is. So we are going to fix it up. So I'm going to go ahead, and it did take at least 2.5 coats to cover this. It's like enamel, I guess. It's not ceramic. So it took at least 2.5 coats to get this covered really well. And I used Fusion in the color casement because I wanted a really clean white. So I got it all painted up. I did leave the handle and the little brass rim because I thought those were really pretty like they are. After the white had dried, I am going to paint the little knob on the top, and I'm going to paint the wood part on the handle with red. This red is a very bright, very Christmassy red. This is called Fort York red in the Fusion paint, and I do have this one available if you're needing a bright red. This is a beautiful one. So I'm going to go ahead and give these 2 coats of this red paint. And I'm already loving how this teapot's turning out. But we are going to do one more step that just really ties it all together. And I'm so glad that I picked up this teapot and decided to do this. So in the IOD Candy Cane Cottage transfer pack, there is this transfer that is candy canes, and it is so cute with this white and red. I saw someone on the tribe on Facebook, the Iron Orchid Designs Creative Tribe group, do this on, I think it was a vase, and I just loved how it looked. And this was my immediate vision when I decided to paint this teapot, was to put this transfer on it. If you are putting a transfer on a very curved surface like this, you basically just want to take it super slow and just do small areas at a time so you can manipulate your paper at like you need to, and that will just avoid having lots of really noticeable cracks in your transfer. Because if you try to do it all at once, some of it's going to come loose before another part, and you'll probably get some cracks in your image. So just take it really slow. And I do like to go around all the outside edges first and then finish up the inside on these really curved surfaces like this. That helps also. So be sure once you get your transfer down that you use your plastic backing to burnish it in. Make sure it's all stuck down really well. And then you also want to seal in your transfers. The fusion paint does not have to be sealed. As long as you let it cure up really well, it has a built-in sealer. But you do want to seal your transfers into it. So I just did an entire coat over the whole teapot with some Fusion Tough Coat matte. And y'all, look how cute this is. I love this teapot. I'm probably going to put this one and maybe all of tonight's upcycles on the website if you would like to purchase the items that I have upcycled. And you can also get your products to do your own. And that's www. Dish for a while, and I never paint brass, but I just don't like this. It just is not pretty. It's ugly. So I thought that I could probably pretty it up some. So I'm going to go ahead and paint it with Carriage House, and we're going to put a transfer on it, and I think it will really help this, and anyone would be proud to display it with their Christmas decor or year-round. This one will work as well. This paint covers so well, and I did 2 coats, but really probably could have got away with just one, especially if I was going to distress it. But I'm not going to distress this one. I am going to get it all painted up, and then we will go with the transfer. And I'm going to use another transfer from the Candy Cane Cottage pack. It has all these pretty florals that are matching, and I just chose one of the larger ones, and we're going to put it directly in the center of this tray once the paint dries. This is a very curvy surface, so you see I'm using my fingers to try kind of push it down into the cracks. so it just knows where to lay. And then I will just do, like I said, just little bitty spots at a time until I get the whole thing rubbed on. It doesn't take long and it's not hard. Just take your time, and once you get one corner going, you can begin to lift up on your package and lift slowly. That way, if something is not stuck down, you can lay it back down and put it right back on there. So this is already so much better. I'm loving how it looks, but I'm going to take just a little dry chip brush and some of that casement, the white paint, and I'm going to go around and hit all the high areas on the tray and even do in the center so you can really see all of the shell parts. And then once that paint has dried, I'm going to come back and I'm going to clear it with a clear matte sealer, and now I love this tray. It looks so much better, and I can get it out of my hoard and get it displayed or for sale on the website. A last minute decision. I like to keep lots of resin molds already poured up. If I pour one, I might as well pour several. So I've had these are from last year's bauble mold. I hope you got one of these last year. I don't have any more available, but I'm going to go ahead and paint these. This Fusion makes metallic paints as well, and this is the bronze color. And I just love the way these ornaments look painted in this shimmery bronzy color. And it really only takes one good even coat to cover these clear ones. This is the 2-part resin, but this is the one that takes over 24 hours to dry or something like that. Maybe it's 12 hours. This is the other one turns white, the one that dries instantly. But when I pour them up, I go ahead and pour several up, and I had a bunch of these made up, and they're going to go perfect with this project. So I got them all painted up with the metallic bronze, and then once that dries, I am going to get some dark wax. They're pretty without it, but I just felt like the wax would really bring out all of those details in the mold. And there's a lot of them in these. I love this bauble mold. There's so many things that you can do with it. To apply the dark wax, I just put it all over it. I let them sit for a few minutes, and then I'll take a paper towel or a lint-free rag and just wipe the excess back off, and then what's left stays down in all those lower areas and really highlights all those details. So I thrifted this big board. It was already stained, and someone had hot glued a clothespin on it and a bow, I think, for hanging a picture on. This is another leftover transfer I had from last year's Christmas Valley. I did not want to paint this board. I love the stain color and I love the look of the wood grain showing. And I thought that this black and white transfer would just be the perfect little background element. This is not going to be the feature. The feature is going to be those molds, but I like the look of this behind them, and it really decorated up this wood without taking away from the wood. So I put these little swag garlands in the top corners, and then I'm just going to glue the molds on in the center like they're hanging from the garland. And this project is so simple. I think it turned out really beautiful and really kind of dark and a little bit different from my normal bright neutral colors, but still very neutral. But I love that bronze color and I love this dark wood. I hope you guys enjoy this project. In the comments below, let me know which one was your favorite of the projects that I did in today's video. Like I said, every time you comment, it helps YouTube share out my video and helps my channel grow. So I'm using the Titebond glue again. Instead of using my finger this time, I'm going to use a brush so I can try to get it really clean and not really close to the edges. But if you do get some glue on your project, you can just wipe it back with a wet wipe or something, and then it won't show. This does dry clear, but the sheen of it will show, so I like to keep it wiped back. Look how gorgeous this shelf sitter turned out. I am in love with it. I'm going to put this one on the website too if you're looking for something like this. Today's projects all were a little bit different, but I love them all. I cannot really decide on a favorite, but I do happen to think if I haul my most recent thrift haul, I picked up this cheese box for $6.99, and I already had a plan in my head. I knew I wanted to decoupage on the top. I cleaned it up and I took my little finger sander and just sanded down that black really well so it would not show through on the white paint. And then I'm using casement and going over the top, being careful not to get on to the metal. And I did 2 coats of this and let it dry before moving on to the next step. After the paint is dry, I'm going to use the Roycycled Feed Sacks decoupage paper. This has 2 different sides to it, and either one of them would have looked good, but I just had my heart set on that blue and red with the rooster. So I'm going to put that on it, and what I'm going to do is just lay it evenly on the top of the cheese box. Then I'm going to use my fingernail and make a slight indentation so I know where to cut it, making sure to keep the paper good and flat so it would be just the right size for the top of the box. And then I'm going to cut it out. And I am going to use the Fusion Decoupage and Transfer Gel. This is a really nice transfer gel to use. It works absolutely perfectly. I when I'm decoupaging, I like to start with a smaller area. So I will usually just apply a good coat of the decoupage gel. And then I also like to spritz my paper. That just opens up those fibers in the paper, and it is so easy to have no wrinkles when you're decoupaging. You can't really tell in this one because this paper is made to look like it has wrinkles in it, but it doesn't actually have any wrinkles in the paper. This method of wetting the paper just really makes it so easy to not have any wrinkles. Once that's done, I'm going to put it aside to dry, and I decided to paint the bottom of the box this blue. This is a Dixie Belle Terra Clay paint. It's super thick, super pigmented, so I ended up watering it down a little bit, and I just did around the whole box with this blue. It dries such a perfect match to the blue in this paper. And then finally, to finish this off, there was a little bit of the white showing around the edges, so I just took a little bit of antiquing or dark wax and rubbed it around the edges, even on the metal, and wiped it all back with a paper towel. And then I'm going to clear the blue paint with some clear wax, and I'll also go over the top of that paper again to kind of erase a little bit of that dark wax and brighten it up. This may have turned out to be my favorite of this video. It's just so farmhouse and industrial, and I love, love, love the blue. I hope you guys have enjoyed this thrift flip. So I just grabbed this very 90s frame out of my stash. I bought it because I really like the ornate detail on the frame. I am going to paint glass and everything with 2 coats of this rose water. Y'all, I can't tell you how much I'm loving this pink, and I'm not a pink person. As you can see, for the first coat, I do have to stipple and push in pretty hard to get it into all those details on the frame. So I did 2 coats on this frame, and then I also had a resin casting frame that I had previously made, and I'm also going to paint it with 2 coats of the rose water. After the 2 coats of paint have dried, I went to my ephemeral melange transfer book because roses is kind of the theme for this video, and I found a pretty little rose seed packet. I'm going to put it directly in the center of the frame. I'm not a measurer. I am definitely an eyer, so that looks pretty good to me, and it looked pretty center when I finished as well. So if you've never used a transfer, they're super easy. All your transfers come with this little transfer tool, and you just rub on it until it releases onto your project, slowly pulling up the plastic backing. And then to finish it off, you want to take your plastic backing and rub it over just to make sure all the little pieces are stuck down good, and that is called burnishing. Once I got the transfer on, then I put the frame on the top of it with probably Titebond or hot glue. Yeah, I think I used hot glue here. It was no problem to glue that down. Once I got it glued on, I wanted to kind of make this multi-dimensional. So I pulled some roses from my stash, cut a few down, and then arranged them how I like them in the middle, the side of the frame, and hot glued them down. I don't know about y'all, but in my transfer scrap bag, I have tons of leaves from different transfers that I didn't use. So I thought to stick with the multi-dimensional here, I would put a few leaves, transfer leaves on here as well. Some of them are up against the frame, and I just thought that this finished this off so nicely. Didn't think about it when I was doing this project, but as I'm editing this video, I'm thinking how pretty it would have been if I had put that wallpaper, decoupage paper behind the small frame there on the glass. Not sure how that would have turned out, but I'm sure it would have been pretty, but I absolutely love this way too. Finally, to finish this off, I probably should have done some of this beforehand too, before I had all the roses. I'm going to white wax around the entire frame just to highlight some of those details on the frame and finish this off and seal in the transfers and everything. So I hope that y'all have enjoyed this thrift store makeover video. Thank you guys so much for watching my channel. Don't forget to like this video and share it out to your friends if you don't care. Make sure you're subscribed and ring that notification bell so you know when I upload a new video every Wednesday night. Hope that y'all have. So I'm going to mix up a big thing, and we are going to get this mold going. Resin is a great medium to use in your molds. It's very simple. They come in two parts. You mix half and half, part A and B. You mix it really well. I like to set a timer and mix for at least a solid minute. and then you just slowly pour it into your mold. You also might want to like tap your mold against something if you can. I don't know how to explain that, and I don't think I showed it, but I just pick it up just a little bit and tap it to get out any air bubbles. With all the extra that I had left, I poured it into a few of the roses in the Felicity mold, because these pair very well together. I've been seeing lots of projects that stockists have been doing, pairing these together. So this is the next day, and look how gorgeous she has turned out. And these flowers, you can put them in her hair. You can make them like her dress. There's just no limit to the possibilities that you can do with these molds. You could also use clay to do this with, and that way you can move them around. I took these out a little bit earlier than the 24 hours, so they're a little pliable still, but I'm just giving you some ideas here that you can do with it. For this initial project, I decided just to use Persephone, and I'm going to paint her with 2 coats of Brook. This is a Fusion all-in-one paint. It has amazing coverage, especially on this clear resin. And I also had this thrifted frame with these little details that I thought really kind of matched the mold. So I did 2 coats, I let it dry, and then to finish this off, I am going to use some of the Fusion aging wax over the frame and the mold. You just rub it on. I'm using an inexpensive chip brush to rub it on, and then I will take a dry paper towel to wipe it back, and then all of that wax stays in the details on the frame and on the mold and just makes everything look so complete, not just like it's something that's been painted and that's all there is to it. And I just love the completed look of this mold. To finish it off, I took the stamped page that we did with the ephemeral type in the beginning of the video, and I placed it in a frame, and I glued Persephone onto it, and this project is complete. I can imagine doing this exact same thing in many different colors and selling every one of them, no problem. These 2 wine boxes. I thought they were really cool as they are, but I also thought they would be so fun to upcycle. And the thing that I love most about them was all of the brass hardware on it. The thing that I did not like the most was the really shininess. So I'm going to tone that down some, but I'm also going to keep it with the black. So I'm using cast iron here, but it was the bottom of the bottle, and I added a little bit of midnight blue to it as well. So it kind of has a little bit of a blue tint to it, but not much. But it also loved the sheen of how this dries up. So I applied 2 coats of the cast iron mixed with the midnight blue to both of the boxes, and I did paint around the hardware because I'm going to go back and update them a little bit later. Once all the paint has dried, I am going to use the Etiquette's foil transfer from the latest IOD release. I'm cutting it down to fit on the front of the box, and I am just going to randomly put these images all over these boxes, including some of the script. I will say that the foil transfers have a little bit of a learning curve to them, just like anything. When you first start using it, it's a little bit harder, but it gets easier as you go. I've applied these a couple of times now, and I have learned that you need to rub a little bit softer on these. If you don't, you will actually rub off some of the areas that are not meant to come off. And I have also found that it is best to lift and look as you go and lay back down and rub a little more, lift and look to see what's not releasing. The biggest problem I am having with these, and I think that the main problem I had on this one was the shiny surface that the paint was applied to. It did pull up the paint just a little bit. I don't know if these are a little bit more sticky or what, but on a different project, I did let the paint dry overnight and it still pulled up a little bit of the paint. So I'm confident that I let this dry fully. Maybe I'm just rubbing a little too hard. But nevertheless, that is an easy repair once we're done. So I'm just going to continue to put these transfers all over the front of these boxes. And I also have found that when you are burnishing these foil transfers, I do better if I use my fingertip rather than the backing. The backing might actually pull some of the foil up, and my fingertips just seem to do better. There's another little place where it pulled up a little bit of paint, but I'll show you how I fix that here in just a minute. I've got these filled up how I want them, and then I'm just going to go in with some of the script and fill in around the areas so the whole front of the box is full. And I only have 3 projects for you today. I'm a little bit on the struggle bus this week. I don't know if you know, but I did go on a vacation last week. I had a wonderful time at the beach, relaxing. I read 2 books. I drank some wine. I just really relaxed. But the last day I was there, I got sick. And the day I got home, I did test positive for COVID. And I am, like I said, on the struggle bus this week, trying to get anything done. I know I promised y'all some big news, and I'm almost to the point where I can share that with you. So just hang in there with me, and we'll get through these projects today, and hopefully by the end of the week I can share my big news with you all. Once I did get all these full transfers applied, I sealed this with some clear wax, and it did not change the sheen of anything at all. And also, before I sealed it, I did go back with just a little paintbrush, and I touched up all the areas that the paint had pulled off, and when it dried, you could not even tell. I absolutely love how these turned out. They look so elegant and so much better than they were before. Y'all be sure and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about these. And have you tried the new full transfers yet? I still have these available on my website, susieonthefarm.com, if you're looking to give these a try. I also painted all the hardware with vintage gold. It matched the full transfers perfectly, and like I said, I love how these turned out. believe I got these when I was going through Lucy's stash. They're already put together well, and all I need to do is fancy them up some. So I am going to start by giving them both 2 coats of French eggshell. I haven't used this color in a while, and I forgot how much I love it. I think it will go well with fall as well, because this blue color just, it's so spring, summery, but it can go well with fall as well. So I gave them both 2 coats, top and bottom, and the little feet, everything. And then once the paint has dried, I'm going to come in with the ephemeral type stamp. This is the one from the new release that is going to be a perfect backdrop for so many different things. And I just randomly stamped the wording and some of the script onto both of these using IOD black ink. To finish these off, I picked 2 matching florals from the new Fairy Tale Florals booklet from the new IOD release. I'm really loving this booklet. I love all these florals, and they go on so many things. And after using the foil transfers, this one's super easy. If you've never used a transfer before, you take off the white backing, lay it down, and all the transfer booklets come with this little rubbing tool, and you just lift as you go, and it's very easy to tell when these transfers adhere to your project. And then I just take the backing and burnish it all in once it is transferred. For these, I sealed them with a clear wax, but first I felt like they needed a little something around the edge. I did not want to use a dark wax because I did not want to change the color any. So I just took my ink pad and I went around the edges just to frame out that top just a little bit, and that completed this project. This metal planner that I picked up. I love the little feet on it, and I really like this. It was $4.99 at Goodwill, and I'm going to clean it up and we are going to upcycle it. I thought that was a sticker, but apparently it was not. I couldn't get it off without really gouging into the metal, so I left that on there. I'm going to get it cleaned up. I'm going to paint the inside and the outside with 2 coats of ochre. I'm obsessed with this paint color. It's this gorgeous gray color. It's very neutral. I just really love this color, and I want to paint all of the things with it. So I got this painted up with 2 coats, and I'm going to put a transfer on this one once it has dried. The transfer that I've chosen to use is an oldie but a goodie. It is one of my favorite transfers, and I have already used 2 entire packs, and I really did not want to open another one. But I did not want to put florals on this, and I couldn't find anything else that I really liked.
and immediately the birds in the brocante transfer came to my mind. So I opened a new brocante booklet. If you don't have one of these, you need to get it. I think I have 4 available on my website, but there are so many gorgeous French country images, and I knew right away that I wanted to put the birds over this planter with the oakum. It fit perfectly. It was just a match made in heaven. So if you've never used a transfer before, they're so easy. You just peel off the backing off the back, and then you use the little tool that comes with each transfer book, and you just rub until the image releases onto your project. The main thing is you want to make sure that your paint or your sealer or anything that you have down is completely dry. If you try to put a transfer over anything that is a little bit tacky, it will lift your paint up, and you don't want that. So when you're rubbing, if you'll just slowly lift up the plastic backing as you go, that usually does really well, and this one was no exception. It transferred beautifully onto this planter box, and I love how it looks with these birds. It's just, they're so perfect on this, and I've been dying to use them again, and they sell so well. To finish this off, because those little feet had some details that kind of got lost when I painted them one color, I used a coat of white wax over the entire thing, and then I'm just going to do a floral arrangement inside. I'm not going to glue down the floral foam. I just put a few in the bottom so it could be removed, changed out for season. I'm going to use some thrifted florals and some florals that I get from Audrey's, the wholesale company that I get a lot of my florals from. And I'm just going to cut them apart, and I'm no florist arranger, but I like to put the focal flowers in first, like the big, pretty flowers, and then everything else I do is just a filler around it. So that's what I'm going to do here. Just arrange this. Like I said, I'm using some thrifted florals and some others. I didn't want to use a ton because florals are expensive. That's why it's great if you can find them when you're thrifting. You can actually put them in your dishwasher to clean them up. I've done that many times. Or you can just put them in some Dawn dish soap in the sink, wash them with your hands, and lay them out to dry. Sometimes florals look really rough when they're dirty and dusty, but once you get them all cleaned up, they're beautiful. You guys, this turned out so beautiful. I wish that I could keep it, but unfortunately I can't keep everything that I love, so I'm gonna have to sell it. Y'all be sure and leave a comment below. Let me know which of today's projects is your favorite. Safari animals on them a while back. Sorry, I can't remember where I got them or how much I paid for them, but I am going to be decoupaging one of those exclusive Roycycle decoupage papers on these. If you are interested in learning more and getting on the list for Sonnet's Makers Box, I will have an affiliate link in the description of this video, and I would appreciate if you would use that link if you do order the subscription box. I am going to paint the top of both of these in white. This is a darker decoupage paper, so I may not have needed to, but just in case.
and I scored it with my fingers, but the paper was so dark I couldn't see where I scored it. So I did come back and score it with my little utility knife, and then I was able to just tear the paper or use my scissors to cut the excess off. And I know y'all have seen me decoupage many times, but I always do it the same way. And I learned this from Sonnet. I do a starter strip, and then I wet my paper, line it up, and then I will take my paintbrush to smooth out all the wrinkles. On a bigger surface like this, you have to be pretty careful, and I luckily did not tear my paper at all on this one. So, and then I just work my way down. I am using the Fusion decoupage and transfer gel. I like it because it's a little thicker. It just seems to be easier on the wrinkles for me. And also wetting the paper helps me with the wrinkles. Some people say that they can't do that it makes them tear the paper. I can't do the cling wrap like everybody else does. But either way, however you want to do it, practice makes perfect. And I used to be terrible at decoupaging, and I think I finally got the hang of it, but I'm still learning, and sometimes I still mess up, as you'll see in the next project. After my decoupage paper was dry, I came back with a little brush, and I used that Little Black Dress, the DIY paint, to go back over the tables. They were black. The legs were all right, but the sides were brown, and they had lots of scratches and stuff in them. So I just freshened up the paint. And the one thing I love about DIY paint is that it can be wet distressed. With the Fusion, having that built-in sealer in it, it's great for so many things, but you have to use sandpaper, and it's pretty hard to distress. So with the DIY paint, you can wet distress it, and that's what I'm going to do once I get all this black. I'm covering all the white and all the brown and the legs and everything with this little bitty sample of the DIY Little Black Dress, and I only used about half of it. So here I am wet distressing. There wasn't a lot to bring back on this because it was black underneath, but there was a little brown, and I wanted to really distress it pretty good. Once I finished wet distressing it, I'm going to go over it with some DIY dark wax. I'm going to go over the paper and everything just to even out the sheen of everything and seal that DIY paint in. I love how these turned out, and I am in love with this decoupage paper. The colors in it, the road signs and everything on it is just perfect. I can see these little tables in a man cave or something like that. They're a little masculine, a little bit dark, and I love them. Picked up this tall galvanized bucket yesterday at the Goodwill. I paid $3.99 for it, and I love the height of it. I also loved the gold or brass band around it and the handles. It's just really, really pretty, and I did not want to change it, but I did want to elevate it just a little bit. And the first thing that I did, as always, is peel off all the thrift store tags and clean it really good. I'm using Crud Cutter because I'm going to put a transfer on this straight onto the galvanized tin. And you need it to be really clean and really dry. So it is clean now, and I'm going to be using the Rose Botanical. This transfer came out last month in July, and I have not had a chance to use it yet. I'm starting to work on fall, but I wanted to take a step back and use this transfer for some summer projects. So if you've never used an Iron Orchid Designs transfer before, they're so easy to use. You just peel back the white backing, lay it onto your project, use the little tool that comes with each transfer pack, and you rub until it releases. And you kind of lift and rub, and if there's a piece that's not coming off, you lay it back down and rub some more, but they're really easy. And then once you get your image onto your project, you want to take that backing there and just burnish it in. Now, I did pink flowers on one side of this, but I thought it would be cool to have a different color on the other side. If whoever buys this wants to change up the floral in it and just change the look of the room or put it in a different room. I also put some of the script that I had cut off onto the top part of this. And then I just put some flowers in it. I did seal this. Now, when you're sealing galvanized in, or any dark paint, you don't want to use a matte sealer because it can look a little cloudy. It'll change the sheen and look a little cloudy. So I'm using a gloss top coat here. This is Fusion Tough Coat in the gloss. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it over the entire bucket so the sheen is the same all the way around. And then this project is done, and it is such an upgrade, but it was such an easy project to do. For our next project, for this large green pitcher, wasn't a fan of the neon green. So the first thing I did was take it outside and give it a couple of coats of black spray paint. I wanted to see how these transfers looked over black, and I was not disappointed. I cut down the transfer where it would just perfectly fit onto the pot, and then I transferred it on same way I've transferred the rest of the projects today. Rub and lift until it is onto my project. To seal this project, I just sprayed it with a clear matte sealer since it was spray paint anyway. I couldn't decide what I wanted to put on the top, but I did end up going with just what was left of that pink ribbon from the previous project, tied it in a little bow, and how simple is this project? I hope that you have enjoyed all of today's projects. Please don't forget to leave. And then I have a special one that my aunt brought me that she wanted me to make over for her at the end. So this one is just a wood crate. I got this for $1 at a thrift store. I have 2 of them, but I'm only going to be making over 1 in today's video. It's completely unfinished, so all we have to do is finish it. I cleaned it up, although it wasn't dirty. It was brand new. And I am giving it 2 coats of Carriage House. I love this green by Fusion. It is such a pretty green, and it goes great with any season. So I did miss the inside of it there just because the wood was kind of dry, and this just made it easier for me to move the paintbrush around inside there where it wasn't so easy to get to. Once the 2 coats are completely on and dry, I am going to go into my transfer stash. And I'm going to tell y'all a problem I have, and y'all are going to hate me for it because it's a pretty good problem to have, but I have too much IOD transfers. So I open transfer books to show you guys new stuff when it comes in, and then I have so much stuff that I never get to use the whole pack. So I have so many opened packs of transfers that I've used bits and pieces of. So my goal for the next few weeks, well, one of my million goals, is to use up a bunch of my transfer scraps. So this is from Milos Pages, and this is the beautiful floral, and I cannot believe, it looks like I've used a few pieces here and there of it, but I'm just going to cover this one in it. I am deciding what I want to go on the sides and try not to, cut through the middle of any large florals and not let them, make them be kind of centered in there. If you've never used a transfer before, they're very easy. The IOD transfers all come with this tool, and you just take off that white backing, put it onto your surface, and then you use the little plastic tool to rub until the transfer releases onto your project. You don't have to rub really hard, and if you just kind of lift and rub and lift and rub, you will be able to tell when it's released, and it just releases really easy that way. For this one, I cut the transfer in the slats there, and then I used either my scissors or that transfer tool to push it down. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and for the edges, I'm just going to have to use what's left there and piece things together to put a bunch of these flowers on the sides too. The only thing I needed to do to finish this up was seal in the transfers, and I used a matte clear sealer to do that. And look how pretty this is. This would be a great remote caddy or storing other small things, all while looking beautiful in your home. For now, I'm using it to store a bunch of bookmarks that I made in front of my register at the store. Showed up in my stash. I don't know where it came from, but Mother told me she got it at a yard sale for 10 cents. Do y'all remember when safari and jungle animals were all of everything? I do, and I had tons of it, and I really, really hope it never comes back in style. To start with, since this is paper on this box, I just took a sanding block and went around it really good, just making sure there were no lifted edges and that everything was smooth before I painted it. So I did that, and then I wiped it down. And for the paint color on this one, I have chosen to use Lichen. It's a fusion color, and I got this sample from Sonnet's Maker's Box in August.
And I had never used the color before, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm going to put 2 coats of lichen on here. I'm being careful not to get it on the black parts. The bottom, the middle, the inside, and that little rim were all in excellent condition, and black goes with about everything. So I'm just going to paint over the elephant jungle paper with 2 coats. For the top of this bird, I decided to stamp the pretty little bird that's in the Charlotte stamp. And while I was at it, I went ahead and got a couple more elements from the Charlotte stamp set. Everything that had wings. I got the bee, the butterfly, and the bird. So that is the theme that we're going with on this box. So I'm using a thin mount and inking up my stamp with some IOD permanent black ink, and I'm just going to center it in the middle of the box and hold my hand down. I always keep one hand in place, and then I use my other fingers to press down on the stamp. I want to make sure all of that beautiful detail comes through my image. And then when you lift up, you just carefully want to lift straight up. You don't want to do any rubbing. And look at that gorgeous detail on this beautiful bird. For the side, I'm going to use the butterfly, but I'm going to kind of catty corner it where it's not all on there. I'm using the same black ink, and I'm just going to stamp that on there. And I'm also going to stamp the little bee over beside the butterfly. And then I am going to use my heat gun to dry the ink just a little bit. I like to let the ink dry naturally. For some reason, it just seems to look better if I let it dry naturally, but it takes a really long time for the ink to dry, but it is permanent. I did get a little spot there, and as you can see, I am just taking my brush and going over that. Usually, if you wipe off of the Fusion paint right after you put the ink on, it will wipe off, but for some reason, that little spot didn't want to come off. After my inks were dry enough that I didn't think I was going to smear them, we're going to put a little color on here. And in an effort to use up some of my transfer booklets, I got this little bee from the Brocant. Also got a moth and a few little florals. And I'm just going to stick them randomly all over this box. We are sticking with the winged creatures here, so everything can fly. I'm going to put these little flowers here to give this bee something to pollinate. And then I want to put some script on the top, just right under that little bird. And I looked through the transfer booklet, the Brocant, because I had it out, and everything in it was French, and I don't know French, but I thought since everything on this little box has wings and can fly, that I would put the word fly right under that bird. Now, I needed something small, so I got out my Apothecary Labels stamp, and I picked up this little label and used the smallest font that was on there to spell out the word fly. At first, I thought maybe I could stamp them together, but the letters were a bit too thick
So I stamped them separately. I first inked up the label, stamped it, and then I did the word fly, and I think it just tied this box together. This is another great way to store small things in your home that you just don't want laying around, but you want to be out of sight, out of mind, and instead something beautiful be in its place. Me this, it's a cardboard box and it's nothing special. I just think she picked it up, she thought it was cute. It's actually a record holder for 45s and she actually wants to use it. She asked me to make it look kind of retro, and we picked out a decoupage paper to go with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is, there was a little bit of cardboard loose there, so I just glued it down and taped it and left it overnight to dry. And then the first thing I'm going to do anytime I decoupage, I want to have a light background. So I'm giving the entire box, everything, 1.5 coats of this. I think this is casement. This is a fusion paint color. It doesn't have to be a perfect paint job. It just needs to be light so that your decoupage paper really pops. Now, the decoupage paper that we chose was the numbered decollage. And what caught my eye on this one, I love this paper. It is so pretty. It has so many colors, and color is my jam, y'all. I love it. But it had this 45 on it, and I wanted to showcase that since this is a 45 record box. But to start with, I'm going to cut out to do the bottom half. I'm going to save that 45 because I'm going to put it on the top. And I'm going to decoupage the same way as I always do. I love to use the Fusion Transfer Gel, and I do a small starter strip. Now, this box is pretty big, and I was a little nervous about going around. I cut out for the class there, but once I started laying it down, it was so easy to put it down on this box. And I just went around each corner. Instead of cutting each side, I just kept going until I got all the way around the box. And the way that I do it is I put down the decoupage paper, I wet the paper, and then I smooth out any wrinkles. This one didn't get any wrinkles because I was kind of pulling as I was laying it down. And then I do another layer of the transfer gel over the top of it. I almost had enough to finish it here, but I had to get a little scrap. But the great thing about this decoupage paper is it's a collage anyway, so you never even notice that I added a different piece in there. I let the decoupage paper dry for several hours. You want it to be very dry when you do this so you don't rip it. And then I took my little finger sander and I sanded off all the excess.
For the top, I originally wanted to use musical notes on the top, a decoupage paper that had musical notes, but I felt like that would just be too much. So instead, I found a color that was in the decoupage paper, and this is Brook by Fusion, and it matches perfectly with a couple of the different elements in the paper. And I gave the top and the bottom, the very bottom, 2 coats of Brook. I decided to go ahead and paint the handle in the same color because we are going to still do something with that 45 on the top here. After the paint had completely dried, like I said, I knew I wanted to use the 45 on here, but I decided I did not want to decoupage the entire top of the box. So instead, I just cut out the 4 and the 5 separately. It was quite a chore. The 4 was really, really easy. I left a little bit of an outline just so they would really, really pop. And the 5 was a little bit of a booger, but I got it. And even if I had torn the 5 or something, it's very easy to put things back together when you are decoupaging. And then I just got them all cut out, and I decoupaged them directly in the center on the top of the box. And then once this is dried, it is sealed. I've already sealed everything with the transfer gel, and the Fusion paint has a built-in sealer in it, and this is such an improvement. Y'all, this is just a cardboard box, and now it is the cutest little retro 45 record holder. Thank y'all so much for watching today's video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Leave me a comment below. Make sure that you like and that you're subscribed to my channel. Next Wednesday, I picked up this ceramic pitcher. I love the color of it. I love the glossy white on it, but I've just felt like it was a bit too plain, and I'm getting quite a collection of blue and white china, and I wanted this to match. Now, this little transfer came from the Fairy Tale Florals transfer book, and I do have these in stock on my website, susieonthefarm.com. And this is another rounded surface that I'm putting quite a large transfer on, so I am being very careful. And for this one, I'm starting in the center and working my way out through each side, just slowly going, doing little bits at a time until I get it all released.
came out so perfect. I love it. There was just a little hole in the top, which I'm sure there was a purpose for it, but I wanted to cover it up. So I took another couple of the little blue florals. And then since this was glossy, I used Big Top, and you cannot even tell the sheen has changed from when I sealed in that transfer, and I love it, y'all. Like I said, this one may be my favorite, but it's a tie for the fourth one we have coming up next. Begin with, I took it outside and I sprayed it with a matte or white matte sealer just to give me a good base, so it was easy to cover this with the white paint. Once the spray had dried, I brought it in and I gave it one good coat of DIY White Swan. This is a clay-based paint, and we are going to be using a paint inlay on this one. I've used paint inlays a lot, but mostly I have used the Fusion. It's a little bit different when you're using a clay-based paint, so I'm hoping that I have a really good experience here. This is a rounded surface, and I thought it would be easier if I cut this paint inlay in half. This paint inlay came from the Melange set. I'm trying to go through a lot of my old stock and use bits and pieces that I haven't got to use yet, and this one fit perfectly, and I love the look of this one. Now, the way a paint inlay works is it embeds that image into your paint. So I'm going to put another good layer of the DIY White Swan. Then I'm going to wet my paint inlay, and then I'm going to lay it into the wet paint. I'm going to push it down to make sure that all of the image makes good contact with the wet paint, because that is what it's going to stick to. I should have probably cut this into another piece because I did have some trouble getting it laid down even, and I always get paint on my fingers when I'm pushing it down. But I did finally get it all pushed down, and then once you do that, you're going to want to spray it again, and that activates the paint on the back of that inlay and lets it dry into your paint. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to do the same with the other piece, except for I am going to cut it in half to help me just a little bit. I did end up having quite a few wrinkles because I'm not too practiced in putting these paint inlays on curved surfaces like this, which, just like anything, I will get better. So I lined it up the best that I could, pushed it into the wet paint, and then wet it again to activate the paint on the back. And then I let it dry. I did use a heat gun to speed up the drying process, and you can tell when your paint inlays are dry because they'll turn back that really light color. Pretty sure I do have some of these paint inlays available on my website, and this one is a great one to start out with. It's called Melange, and it has all kinds of smaller images, so you're not messing up a huge image if you mess up, and you have plenty more to play with and practice with. So once this had dried, all you need to do is re-wet your inlay. Let it sit for just a minute. I take a paper towel and wipe off any of the excess, and then you'll want to get a corner and pull your paint inlay off. And like I said, this one turned out pretty good. I had a pretty good image, but I did have quite a few wrinkles, and that's what gave it the texture, and I actually ended up loving the texture, and I'm going to add some more to that with my paintbrush once this has dried. There's a little bit that didn't transfer there, but that again just adds to the aged element of this picture. So next I am going to take my paintbrush and add just a little bit more of that texture. I didn't get a lot of filming of it, but I just put a little bit of paint on my brush and dabbed into different areas on the picture. And then I spray sealed this one, and y'all, I love it. I think it is so beautiful and such a great improvement over how it was before I started. So hope y'all have enjoyed this video and all these pots and pitcher makeovers. I hope that I have inspired you to go through your stash, get out something and make it beautiful. And if you need any products, they're all available on my website, susieonthefarm.com, and I'll put a list of everything that I used in this video. I'm going to use this bamboo cutting board that was in my stash. Nothing special about it. You see them all the time at the thrift store. And I'm going to use this image right under the word harvest that has all the different filigree and the pumpkins and all. And I'm going to leave one side as is so it can still be used as a cutting board. But for the side that we're going to work with, I'm going to put a good hefty coat of liquid patina. I'm making sure that this is on here good and thick, but evenly. So I did the whole thing, and then I misted my paint inlay, and I wet that paint, let it sit for a minute, and then I laid it into the wet liquid patina, and I pressed it down all around to make sure that good contact was made. And for this one, and this may have been what helped me as well, I even used a brayer and I flattened it out completely, and I got a little nervous after doing that because I saw a lot of the liquid patina had kind of been pushed out of the side, and I was afraid that it wouldn't transfer. So I was holding my breath. So once I got this all down, I re-wet it, and then I used the brayer, and then I let it dry. You can tell when your paint inlays are dry because they'll go back to this really white color. And once they're dry, you just want to take your mister bottle or a wet towel or whatever and re-wet the back of your paint inlay. Let it sit for just a minute to let it release that paint, and then I like to dab and get up any excess water while it's sitting. And then I'm just going to take a corner and I'm slowly going to pull back, and this is the best transfer I've ever had with a paint inlay. It is so gorgeous. I love it on this wood background. This is the perfect image. To seal this in, usually I spray it because I don't want to smear it, but I also took a chance because I've seen many other creators not do that, and I loaded up my paintbrush with some liquid patina, and with a very light hand, not pressing on the image at all, I went ahead and just brushed over it, and I went ahead and did the whole entire cutting board with another coat of liquid patina to seal this in. To finish this off, y'all know how I like to frame in my things, so I took my ink pad and I went around the edges, and then for the little oval opening there, I used my fingertip with a little bit of ink on it to finish that off. I just feel like framing them in just finish off a project and completes it. You'll have to let me know what you think about this paint inlay in the comments below. If you're still here, you've been hanging out with me for more than 2 hours, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate it. Next week, we'll get back to some new thrift store makeovers. Can't wait to see y'all then.